Hello, my name is Katherine Aguiluz, and I am presenting my research project, Bilingual Education as Political Power, Unraveling the Historical Context, Cultural Importance, and Politics of Bilingualism under Dr. Katherine Barko-Alva. Last summer, I conducted research on democratic erosion in El Salvador. My ability to speak English and Spanish fluently enriched my experience while collecting, analyzing, and synthesizing the data I gathered. As I reflected on my experience in the country, I realized how important my bilingualism was to this project. Being able to communicate with Salvadoran scholars and reading their work in Spanish was key to my personal experience as a Latina academic, but also to the work I was achieving. From that, I began conceptualizing this idea of bilingualism and linguistic ability in connection with political awareness and activism. I quickly understood that in order for Latina individuals in the U.S. to preserve their culture, they must engage with the community in both English and Spanish. The speaking of both languages is essential for the community to maintain their cultural identity, foster familial ties, and unravel their cross-cultural understanding. Additionally, I noticed how many of my bilingual peers were more politically inclined than their monolingual counterparts, being more interested in issues of immigration, social justice, and educational equality. After observing this and taking into consideration my own bilingual experiences, I gained a need to explore how language ability influences political action. While looking into the topic, I realized how intergenerational dialogue was left out of the conversation. There was a lack of literature on how bilingual education and language policy are influenced by knowledge passed down through generations. And this intersection of language, identity, and family is important for developing and strengthening multilingual initiatives that preserve individuals' cultural identity. As a side note, I wanted to mention my use of Latina instead of Latino or Latinx within the context of this research. My research question dives deeper into the minds of Latina individuals and their understanding of politics in relation to their Spanish and English fluency. Through this project, I asked the question of whether bilingualism for individuals raised in Spanish speaking households increases their political awareness in issues like immigration, among others. If being bilingual in Spanish and English does raise their political awareness, I wanted to investigate how this allows individuals to culturally reproduce themselves. The question I investigate looks into how language and culture are intertwined and how this is passed down through generations. For this project, I collected my data by conducting one in-depth interview with a multi-generational bilingual family. I define multi-generational as two or more generations, and in this case, a grandparent, parent, and child who spoke English and Spanish. During the interview, I asked a number of open-ended questions that related to language acquisition, retention, immigrant backgrounds, and their understanding of politics. Two example questions asked were, how has your ability to speak or not speak Spanish fluently impacted your cultural identity? And how have you maintained your Spanish after immigrating to the U.S.? After collecting my data, I coded the responses from the interviews as I analyzed common patterns, themes, and ideas across the three family members' responses. This project focused on a single case study approach on one family, which allowed for a personal interview that produced great qualitative data. This interview served as a nuanced understanding of how individuals perceive their English and Spanish bilingualism, the passing down of their culture, and their cultural identity through an emphasis on intergenerational dialogue. The takeaways of this project include the importance of cultural wealth, how language is a political tool, and how the preservation of Spanish language creates agency in Latina individuals. The intergenerational interviews demonstrated how elders pass down their inheritance through culture and language. It is the act of sharing their Spanish language and Latin American traditions, values, and behaviors which influence, nurture, and educate the younger generation. This cultural wealth or family wisdom manifests into a practical form of well-being. The younger generations of older generations who connect with their culture, honor their roots, and speak their family's languages can acquire greater financial wealth and are more serviceable within their careers. Furthermore, the anecdotes of the third generation individual or the grandchild/child demonstrate that language access, use, and education is a political tool. Specifically, for the Latina community in the U.S., learning, understanding, and connecting with the Spanish language while being an English speaker creates more access to resources, wealth, and knowledge within the community. This access to greater things creates equity, which in turn leads to communities that are unified and socially strong. Finally, language preservation creates agency among bilingual individuals. The third generation family member mentioned their desire to contribute to their Latina community. For them, their bilingualism connects them to their culture and gives them a sense of importance within society, their community, and especially within their career. This connection to their cultural language and familial wisdom ignites a social and political awareness of their community's needs. By connecting with their cultural identities, they can connect with their community's necessities and contribute to the fulfillment of those needs. Overall, this project contributed to the understanding of bilingual identities, culture, and intergenerational wisdom, while also providing me with a stronger perspective of how culture, language, and family politically informs us and engages our activism. There is a complexity that comes with identifying as bilingual and navigating that experience. While language is all around us, we tend to overlook its impact on the exchange of cultural knowledge and how it connects groups towards social unity. By combining the bilingual experience to the complicated political history of language within the US, we begin to understand how linguistic ability is political power for the Latina community. Thus, preserving language is essential for Latina individuals. This connection to language and culture is what cultivates critical thinking, increases empathy, and elevates the social well being of bilingual individuals. This language comprehension is what increases the political potential of the Latina community. Through bilingualism, younger generations of Latina individuals can understand political happenings, engage with activism, and acknowledge the difficult histories of their community. As I look into the future, I understand how politics follows culture and how education and politics are intertwined. As understood through Paulo Freire's pedagogy of the oppressed, education is never neutral and it has the power to liberate, domesticate, empower, or subjugate. Thus, reinforcing cultural diversity and appreciating multilingual communities is crucial as the US's political environment complicates. Educators must engage with the needs of their students as we realize that cultural awareness is a form of power, reinforces democracy, and leads to social justice. As a whole, we must emphasize how language is a vehicle for resistance, civic courage, and informed agency. Therefore, by focusing on the personal narratives of familiar generations through language ability, we can begin building a holistic understanding of linguistic and educational policies for future generations. Lastly, this is a list of the references I used in making this presentation. Thank you for listening, and thank you dearly to the Charles Center at WM Sure for funding this project.